Hello everyone. Being a little experimental here and doing a video instead of just making a document, I figured I would be able to fit more stuff in here, go into a little bit of the context and my own thinking rather than just laying out a plan and a bunch of pages. And videos are more digestible, so hopefully I don't ramble too much. I do have a tendency to ramble, so you'll have to forgive me. I'll try to edit some of that stuff out if it does happen. But anyway, I want to preface this with a few things. Firstly, welcome to the team. We're going to do great. We have the best players, nothing but the best on this team, I assure you. But firstly, this is a very interesting campaign. I'm glad James chose it. I know some of you, maybe all of you, don't really know the historical Second Manassas campaign very well, but it's rightly considered Lee's best campaign. It's really kind of like a masterpiece. You can kind of think of it like, I guess, sort of like Napoleon's 1796 campaign. Obviously, it wasn't as strategically decisive, but it was really something else. And secondly is I actually played this campaign 2 years ago now. Zeke ran a game of it. It was a little larger because the Army of the Potomac was also involved. I was McClellan in that game. That was a lot of fun. I was basically up in Alexandria and Washington for most of the game, trying to coordinate, trying to also figure out what Pope was doing and where he was and what was going on, how I could help him. And then eventually we sort of joined forces on the Broad Run and fought this big battle here for several days. And we ended up launching this big flanking attack and kind of rolled up the Confederate line and actually kind of like destroyed the Army of Northern Virginia, like half of it. Really fun game. James was actually Stewart in that game, so he's pretty familiar with it. I am too. So this may be slightly different in terms of what the Union has available, but I am reasonably familiar with it. So generally speaking, we kind of have to strike while the iron is hot, because the Union, the numbers, numerically speaking, were probably approximately equal. Maybe we have slightly more men, maybe they have slightly more men. The thing is, they have more corps than us. They have 4 corps. They might have a 5th coming up from Washington. We don't know yet, but we only have 2, so our corps are larger than theirs. So that's something to be. It's both a strength and a weakness. If we can concentrate one of our corps against one of theirs, we're going to have the advantage. If we can concentrate 2 of our corps against 2 of theirs, we're going to have an advantage. The issue is supplies are going to be a big problem in this campaign, right? The further north we go, the further north they go, their supply lines are going to get shorter and shorter and shorter. They're not going to have to worry about supplies as much. The further north they withdraw, the further closer they get to Alexandria and Washington. Meanwhile, the further north we go, basically once we cross the Rapidan River, which is this river right here, which is a tributary of the Rappahannock, which is this river. Once we cross, we're sort of on the clock. And our supply situation is going to get worse and worse. And if we don't build depots on the way, if we don't try to deal with that problem, we're going to start suffering fatigue and then attrition. And that's not good, because not only operationally but strategically, manpower is in very short supply for us. So we really have to try and, again, strike while the iron is metaphorically hot. As far as objectives are concerned, we need to. This isn't going to be a campaign where we have to be content if we slap the enemy around a little bit and drive them from the Rappahannock to Cedar Run or the Broad Run, or the Bull Run or even the Potomac. We have to destroy the enemy. That is the objective. We have to destroy at least a part of the Army of Virginia, or preferably, of course, the entirety of it. Strategically, that is really kind of the only way we survive the war, or survive into 1863. We have to really give them a very severe defeat. So one of the, looking at personnel, I think it's very important. You shouldn't put too much stock into it, but I think it's important. Their Pope player, I have no idea. Maybe they know a little bit about the campaign historically, maybe they don't. Maybe they know a little bit about the system, maybe they don't. I don't know. I believe Swentz he might be McDowell. He's one of these 3. Swentz is a very good player. The other 2, I don't recall seeing very often, I don't think. So they're an unknown quantity. The interesting one is going to be Reno. Reno is played by Zarina Lake. He's a good player, and perhaps most importantly, he's very familiar with this scale and with this system. So I think of the 4 Union Corps commanders, Reno is going to be the biggest sort of threat. So I want to try and deal with that threat as quickly as possible. So what we're going to do here, this may look a little weird, a little convoluted, but bear with me. They only expect the cavalry and Jackson. Jackson's blue, by the way. Longstreet is red, and green is Stuart. Jackson's down here. He's a little out of position. It's a little awkward, but he has 3 big divisions, and he's so far as role-playing is concerned, he's the only corps that the Federals supposedly expect. They apparently don't know that Longstreet is here. This is Longstreet. This is Anderson here by Orange Courthouse, or also Longstreet. So it's a little out of position. If I had my way, I would have done sort of flipped their roles and made Jackson go this way and Longstreet go this way. But I want to try and keep up the facade as much as possible. So I want to be very aggressive here. Historically, what Lee did was he basically repeatedly outflanked Pope, and repeatedly he pushed him first to the Rappahannock along this line, and then sent Jackson over here through the mountains. I believe these are the Manassas Mountains, with Stuart, while Longstreet held this line and outflanked Pope again. And Jackson went all the way up here to, I believe, Bristow Station, raided a depot there. Stuart was running around in Pope's rear, and Pope wasn't panicking, but he said, oh, hey, here's part of the Confederate army. I'm going to march this way, destroy it while it's totally isolated behind our lines, and Lee will be finished. He won't have the strength with Longstreet's corps to really resist us. That was Pope's thinking, and the result was the Battle of Second Manassas, or Second Bull Run. I say Second Manassas, First Bull Run. That's just sort of me. But they fought it up here, and it was one of the worst Union defeats of the war, basically. Longstreet launched this massive flanking attack and really just kind of rolled up the entire Army of Virginia, and it was a complete disaster. And the Confederate victory there basically gave the Confederates some breathing room, and it also inspired Lee to cross the Potomac and invade Maryland. So what we have to do here, we want to try and replicate that a little bit. We want to turn the enemy out of their positions, because again, they have this strong line of Mountain Run, the Rappahannock, they have the Cedar Run, they have the Broad Run, they have the Bull Run. These are really strong defensive positions, and since numerically we're kind of probably going to be equal, we have to turn them out of these strong positions and fight them piecemeal, where we can destroy them in detail. So, all of that having been said, see, I told you, I warned you, it was going to be a little rambly, but this is Jackson. What he's going to do, all this is going to be forced marching, by the way. We have to be very aggressive, we have to be very quick, and we have to take advantage of the enemy being out of position for as long as we can. So Jackson's going to force march up this way. He's going to cross the Rapidan right here, cross Summer Duck Run, move east, and end up at Salubria. A forced march is probably going to be around 22 to 25 miles a day. That's, I think, a reasonably conservative estimate. That's what we should probably rely on. A standard march, according to the rules, is going to be about 12 miles, 12 miles. So Jackson's going to move up here. While he's moving up here to the Rapidan, Stuart is going to send Robertson over this way, and he's going to cross the Rapidan with Fitzhugh Lee here, push Buford back. Hopefully he moves. It doesn't really matter which way he goes, but he's going to be pushed back. And then the 2nd Virginia Cavalry are going to move up this way and then also cross the Rapidan at this point. And Stuart's going to basically screen Jackson's advance. He's going to collect intelligence. He's going to screen the advance, sort of block, so the enemy doesn't really know exactly which road Jackson's taking. But he's also, it's a little bit of subterfuge, right? Because I want the Union to basically think that Longstreet is going to come up and maybe be around Mitchell Station, Cedar Grove Church, and push on Culpeper. So if we skew Stuart sort of leftward here, you can see that Jackson's going to be on the right with the other brigades and regiments of the cavalry here. I'm hoping that they'll think that Longstreet is coming up here, and that Stuart is kind of connecting both of the wings as they move forward. That's the idea. Will it work? I don't know, but it's that's the gamble, right? So Jackson is going to move up here closer to the confluence between Mountain Run and Rappahannock and the Rappahannock. Longstreet is going to have a lot of marching in the first day, but hopefully it's only going to be 1 or 2 days, which is going to be 1 or 2 turns, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. He's going to force march from here down to Locust Grove, get onto the, which highway is this? I think it's the Orange Courthouse Pike, the Orange Courthouse Road. He's going to move up here through the Wilderness Tavern, come up here, cross the Rapidan, cross the Rappahannock. At the end of the first day, he should be right around here, approximately. The head of his column, at least, should be right around here. On the second day, he's going to continue up. Anderson's division is down here. This is like, yeah, this is 7,000 men. It's a big division. I want to try and keep him connected. I also don't want to attach him to Jackson and sort of give up the game. I also, just want Longstreet to be as strong as possible. So this division is also going to force march up the Courthouse Road. He should finish first day here, while Longstreet is finishing his first day up here. 25 miles. This is, by the way, the mile markers. This means Anderson on day 2, if he's marching 12 days, 25 miles on the first day at here. If he marches another 12 miles, he'll end up here, right? Hopefully that sort of makes sense. The purpose for Longstreet going up this way is to, of course, turn the enemy out of the Rappahannock line. This is a very strong defensive line, and if we can get around that, Pope will either be forced to stand and fight somewhere here, which I don't think he will do. If he does do it, we're going to be in very good shape, but I don't think he's going to make that mistake. But here's hoping he does. He's either going to have to fight there, or he's going to have to abandon this defensive line and fall back on the Cedar Run or on the Broad Run. One of the problems, again, with this situation is we're going to be stuck in a bit of a supply issue. We have enough supply for 1 day, and then after that we're sort of on the clock, because I believe every day we're without supply, not within supply range, every unit is going to take 1 fatigue. And I believe, if I recall, once they get to 4 fatigue in that situation, they're going to start taking permanent attrition, and we don't want that. So Anderson is going to take 1 attrition for every forced march, or every time you spend most of the day fighting, per the rules. So at the end of the first day, Anderson's going to be here with 1 attrition. At the end of the second day, Anderson's going to be up here with 2 attrition. He's probably going to spend the first week or so of the game not really doing much, but I think it'll be good for him to maybe establish a supply line. Once we can clear the Army of Virginia out of this section, we should have access to this rail line, meaning we can probably draw supply from it. I'll have to clarify with James one final time. That would make our jobs a lot easier, and my job a lot easier, but worst case, we can have Anderson establish a supply depot somewhere up here. We can draw supply from that and continue the pursuit. The general style of what I want to try and do is continually turn the enemy out of these defensive positions with strong flanking attacks. I don't think we'll need the cavalry when we're going through the wilderness here. I don't think, if they do expect it, it won't be that big of a problem, because the enemy is going to have an artillery advantage, and artillery does not perform well in gigantic forests like the wilderness here. Stuart, I think, generally speaking, is just going to always be with the main body. He's always going to be screening, providing reconnaissance. I want constant reports from you, by the way, Jeb, if you're listening. I think it's going to be very important for us going forward, trying to figure out where the enemy is, what they're doing. As far as enemy order of battle, by the way, I didn't really touch on this. Again, strength-wise, probably approximately the same between the two of us, but each of their corps are going to be slightly smaller. Each of their corps is probably going to have 2 to 3 divisions, or at least maneuver elements, I should say. There may be some independent brigades, like Evans' brigade down here. Longstreet's, this is actually a small independent brigade. Technically, it's not really a division, but that's sort of, minutia. 2 to 3 divisions per corps, most likely. And in addition, I believe each one has a small cavalry brigade. So Buford's cavalry brigade here, which is the only enemy unit we can see right now, he's answering to one of the corps. I can't remember which one it is, but so each of their corps is going to have a little bit of reconnaissance capability, whereas our infantry don't really have that. Jackson and Longstreet, they don't have, you don't have cavalry. That's up to Stuart. So I'm going to be very communicative with you guys. If either of you, any 3 of you rather, any 4 of you, I think there's 4 of us, know I'm a very communicative guy. I like sending dispatches. It's important to stay in communication. It's important to try and keep you guys updated. If you feel the need to write to one another, please do that. I trust your judgment. I know the four of you are reasonably experienced at the very least. Some of you more experienced than others, but you all have at least some experience. So if you feel the need to write to one another, obviously I'm not going to stop you from doing that. It's good to stay in communication. Please write to me. Yeah, so I think it's important to remember, again, celerity with this. We have to move quickly. We have to be aggressive. They may not, again, they may know that Longstreet is on the scene. They may not. They probably suspect he will be on the scene shortly. So before they can confirm that, we have to move very aggressively. Another reason why I'm choosing to go around the right than on the left, I believe historically Lee just kind of pushed down the center here, and then he turned Pope out of the Rappahannock line. We're just better positioned to move onto the enemy left than we are into the enemy right. It's longer if we go this way, and the terrain is also more difficult. He can just fall back on the Rappahannock like what happened historically. Even without historical hindsight, I would want to move on the enemy right. This is a gigantic forest. It's not good for fighting. It's an advantage to us, but I don't think they will necessarily expect it, or at least not in significant strength. Originally, I contemplated sending the entire army that way, but it sort of would defeat the purpose of having Jackson kind of pin them in place here. Maybe thinking, oh, we can, hold the Mountain Run line, maybe hold Culpeper. Yeah. So, if anyone has any questions, serious concerns, maybe if you have a suggestion that you think is truly brilliant, please let me know. Again, by the end of the first day, Longstreet should probably be around here. Jackson will probably be around here. Stewart is going to be moving a little more cautiously and conservative, probably. His overall job is to screen Jackson, because the enemy does not know that Longstreet is here, or at least they shouldn't. And we have to create the illusion that we're kind of advancing along this axis over here on the right, and also maybe along here on the left. I don't think we're going to really hurt from lacking the cavalry over here. By the end of the first day, they may be along the Rappahannock, they may not. I'm going to write to Jackson and tell him, march by this road or that road. The other thing is, at the end of the first day, the wings are only going to be, airline miles, as the crow flies, about 10 miles apart, maybe more like 12 or 13 by road. That's not terribly long. That's less than a day's force march apart, which is good. So always keep in mind the scale, too, is another thing I want to mention. I've run a lot of games using these maps and using this scale, and I think one thing that's very often lost on the players, as hard as I try, is the scale of these maps, right? This is, one of these, that's a mile. That's an entire mile, right? For comparison, let's look at the historical Second Manassas battlefield. This is the historical Second Manassas battlefield. There were about 150,000 men in this space historically. This is small. It's about 4 by 2 miles. And that's about the size of the Manassas of the Antietam battlefield, the Gettysburg battlefield. I would show you the Antietam battlefield. They're all very small. The Shiloh battlefield, I think, was 2 by 2. So one of the strengths that we need to rely on, and I really want to impress upon you guys, is attacking in depth. Don't have, if you have 4 divisions, let's say, don't attack along a front like this. What you want to do is attack as condensed as you possibly can with reserves, send them in, and you will crush them, basically. If I can try and get the entire army concentrated in a pretty small area, I'm going to do that. And again, remember reserves, attacking in depth, very critical. With this scale, if you can punch through at a certain point, you can just completely unravel an enemy's line, and chaos will follow. So hopefully good chaos in our favor. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, if you have any questions, if you have any possibly brilliant suggestions, please go through. Otherwise, I'm pretty happy with the plan. It's not perfect, but I'm confident that we are at least going to hopefully catch the enemy by surprise. We're going to have to do a lot of thinking on our feet after the first day, which is why I didn't really chart out what exactly they're going to do. If their CIC is really inexperienced and really kind of blunders, they could make a stand on the mountain run. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're probably going to fall back on the Rappahannock, which again is the purpose of this movement. If we start coming out of the woods here on their flank, they might start to panic. They might be like, wow, especially after the first day, if we continue to move aggressively. So, yeah, anyway, I'm starting to repeat myself here, so thank you for watching. Hopefully this was digestible. Hopefully I answered most of your questions and you basically understand the plan. I will also post screenshots of this in the chat, so everyone sort of has a good reference outside of the video. Also, one final thing I forgot to mention earlier. I'm probably going to start with Longstreet. I trust Jackson and Stewart to be pretty prudent in their movements and their decisions on the first and the second days. Since I'm going to be out here, it might be a full day's delay in communication. I'm not sure how the umpires are going to handle that just yet, but if you see like Reno just kind of hanging out here chilling at Stevensburg or Salubria, attack him. Go all in, basically, Jackson. Stewart, in that case, should probably be trying to screen Jackson's left. The enemy may still be in Culpeper or just north of the mountain run in that case. Because again, the whole purpose of the campaign, we want to catch the enemy by surprise, attack them in detail while they're separated, strung out on the roads. That would be really ideal. And I want to be with Longstreet, not to babysit him, but when we appear out of the wilderness on the second day, I want to be able to see if the enemy has a line on the Rappahannock. If they do, or if they don't, I can send a message back to Jackson and Stewart pretty quickly, figure out what to do, give them orders in terms of how to move from there. So yeah,